Hey everybody.
Hello.
It is so good to be back with you. My name's Justin.
I'm Kerri.
And welcome to the Chosen Chat. We just finished season 1.
Yes, season 2.
Last episode. So now we're on season 2. And we hope that these conversations that Kerri and I are having are helping you have conversations with the people around you. If you're a part of One Life Church, then you're probably using them as a part of your 242 group or maybe with your family as you are watching this amazing show. So today we're looking at season 2, episode 1. Mm-hmm. We're going to continue using the same questions that we've been using along the way. Those will all be in the description below. And you can find some scripture references in the description below. So the first question that I want to ask, Kerri, is I want to combine the two questions. What character grabbed your attention? What character did you resonate with? What part of this episode really caught your attention and you wanted to hit the pause button and lean in a
Absolutely.
little bit more?
The episode's Thunder, and it really focuses in on James and John and kind of their transformation journey, why they were called Sons of Thunder, especially in light of where they were in Samaria. This did not happen in the Bible. As far as James and John didn't want them to go to Samaria. It's not like we've got this, they're plowing the field kind of thing in Scripture. But the mindset that they had was very typical for Jewish men of that time, Jewish people of that time. So the part that just really grabbed my attention is they start off with plowing, and they're like, well, it's because Jesus likes us best, and he knows we don't like those people. So he's keeping us away from those people. And just the way they interact with the whole idea of Jesus reaching out to Samaritans and the evolution of that thought process throughout the episode was what really grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you resonate at all with James and John? Or has there been a time in your life whenever you've resonated with them?
I want to say no, but that's a lie. Now the groups that I have been like, no, those people have changed.
Yeah.
Over my life. But I do still have this whole, the line that gets me every time is when they're interacting with the Samaritans and they start throwing rocks at them and they ask Jesus, well, call down fire from heaven. Now, that did happen in the Bible. Yes. That actually is true. And Jesus says a line like, you want me to destroy an entire town because some people were mean to you? And I feel like sometimes I have that scorched earth mindset of like, God, just take out that whole idea, just stop that thought, stop that whole thing, just make it go away. And without even thinking like, just because it makes me uncomfortable, just because they're mean to me and I don't like it. Yeah.
Well, I want to come back to that. We're going to come back to that idea, and we're going to lean into it a little bit more because I think that is something we're all experiencing in our world today is an us versus them, the sin of othering.
Yes.
And wanting to eliminate those people or if they'll just agree with us, then we're cool.
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't agree with us, I'm going to wipe you off the face of the earth.
Exactly. Cancel. You're done.
Yes. We're going to come back to that.
Okay.
But what stood out to me and I actually want to ask you before we come back to that is at the very beginning when they were all being interviewed by John.
Yeah.
And they were telling their stories, they were giving witness to, you may use the word testimony, to the first time they met Jesus. And this time as I was watching the episode, it just warmed my heart, hearing them each share their story and the details of their story about the first time that they met Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering for you, which one of those stories could you resonate with the most? Does one come to mind?
Honestly, a little bit of Matthew and a little bit of Mary.
Okay.
With Mary, I can't remember a time that Jesus wasn't in my life. It's been my entire life. With Matthew, I remember the exact place, the exact night, the exact church, exactly where the preacher was standing when I was like, yes, I'm getting baptized.
Yes.
That specific, recollection, definitely.
Yeah. So where were you?
Valley Church of Christ. It was 1997, and it was a Sunday night. Larry Danner was preaching, and I was sitting in like the third row back, and I was almost 13 years old.
That's awesome.
And I came home to my parents, and I was like, yeah, I think it's time. I get baptized. And
That's
so
amazing.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't know if this would sound weird, but I resonate with what Mary said, and that I don't ever remember a time whenever he hasn't been a part of my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I was born into a family that was following Jesus, and that's what I was brought up to follow Jesus. I also know the moment and the place, Wonder Valley Christian Camp, Salem, Indiana, like a week of camp where the guy speaking did an invitation, and I said, I'm ready to give my life to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I was going into the 6th grade, and my parents came over, my pastor came over, and I was baptized in the pool. And I remember, and this is kind of, I don't know if it's mystical or maybe it weirds you out, but I remember whenever I went, and this was in the middle of the summer, so it wasn't because the water was cold. I went down in the water, and I came up out of the water, and I remember feeling that feeling of like the heavens opening up and God saying like, I love you and you are mine. And that's why I've always resonated when Jesus is baptized and he comes up out of the water and the heavens open up and God says, you're my son, I'm pleased with you, I love you. And just that feeling of knowing that was the moment whenever I said yes to Jesus and I was going to commit my life to following Jesus. Has it been easy all the time? Absolutely not. I think one of the disciples even said, I felt like I was going to lose my career, which for me, whenever God called me to go into full-time ministry, it was a huge shift. I was headed in one direction, and he asked me to not be an engineer and to be a pastor. And so I can resonate with that, like meeting Jesus along the way and him calling you in different directions can cost.
Yeah.
It will cost.
It will.
It will cost.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's great. And I actually hope that you can tell the story. If you're in a 242 group, that you would spend some time sharing the story of when you met Jesus. If you have not met Jesus, I want to invite you to say yes to Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the invitation is there. He is knocking at the door of your heart, inviting you to walk in relationship with him, to trust him, to say that you are a sinner and that you are in need of a Savior, and he will save you and he will give you a new life.
Absolutely.
So the next question is, what is the good news in this episode? What's the good news for you? And I want to go back to what you were talking about. Good news, and what is difficult to believe. Why is it difficult to believe that good news? So will you riff a little bit on the whole like scorched earth, calling down fire from heaven, and how that applies? You think that applies in our world today?
I think the good news that we talk a lot about family systems theory as a staff, but one thing that really stands out to me about Jesus is it's called differentiation, and how Jesus knew the right thing, and he knew what he needed to do, and he knew who he needed to love, despite all the other things around. So just the focus Jesus has on the people of Samaria, because you see throughout the entire episode, James and John are having an issue with it. That's when we see Thomas show up, and I cannot remember her name. Thomas's girlfriend's dad isn't cool with it, and people are like, Jesus, you need to be doing this and this and this, and he's just so calm.
Yeah.
And is like, no, it is about loving these people. He looks beyond the sin of the man who was injured, and he looks beyond the hatred. And he's like, it's not about that.
Yeah.
And being able to filter out that noise of who the sources outside are telling me to love and hate.
Our friend Nathan says that's an ease. Like there's an ease about Jesus in this series.
Yes.
There's a calm, some call it a non-anxious presence.
Yeah.
He's not pulled like from one group to the next group, or one worldview to another worldview, or you're going to love them but hate them. He's just so calm and so at ease, and he knows his convictions and he knows his values, and he's going to stay true to that.
Yeah.
And it's really, really beautiful and very challenging because I want that. You know, I want that kind of ease. I think for me, the good news is that in a world that is begging us and demanding that we other people and that we cancel, that we destroy, that we eliminate, that we, you know, call them bad and good, dark and evil and all these things that Jesus shows us. Like, you have to understand, Jesus is a Jewish man, and the Jewish people and the Samaritans at this time despised one another.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that shows up with calling Matthew to the table, and we see the relationship between Matthew and Peter. Like, you have to understand, like, Jesus was this, like, blue-collar worker. He was a carpenter.
Yeah.
So Matthew would have taxed the bejesus out of him. All pun intended.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like, he would have cheated him and scammed him and taken money to put it in his own pocket. And he calls him to the table. Jesus' family would have had conflict with the Samaritans.
Absolutely.
It made sense for them to walk around it. And he's like, we're going to these people. This is the mark of Jesus. Love your enemy. Not only love them in words, but bless them. Invite them to the table. Give them value, dignity. Celebrate with them. Like whenever he heals the Samaritan man who was injured, and he wakes up in the morning and they're celebrating, and he celebrates with the good that is coming on their life.
Yes, I love that. He wakes up and he just has that smile again because he's not there.
No.
And he's like, oh, yeah.
But this is a Samaritan family,
Yeah.
and he's a Jewish man. It should look like this. It should look like othering, and Jesus is like, I want what's good for them.
Absolutely. The thing that popped in my mind is when Jesus says, I must be about my Father's business. That's like his path. His path is his Father's business. And if you want to join him on that path, great.
Yes.
But he's not going to divert that path because you're uncomfortable.
So what is the Father's business? The Father's business, God's business, is seeking the good of those who are even still considered God's enemies.
Yeah.
Who still like turn their back on him and rebel against him. Like, God does not seek to curse them,
Right.
to crush them, but he seeks their good.
In their restoration and healing.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That is such good news because it stands in such contrast to the world that we are living in right now. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the biggest shifts in my preaching has been shifting. I'm sure you've grown up with this. It's like the world. We don't want to be like the world. And the world is like this dark entity that we can't have anything to do. But instead, shifting it from that to being, well, God loved the world. And seeing the world as a place that needs light rather than a place to fear the dark.
yes.
When you see it that way,
Yes.
it becomes way less about the scorched earth.
Yes.
We hate them. We can't have anything to do with them.
And the crazy thing is, it's not just the world. Like, in political terms,
Oh, yeah.
it's right versus left, and the person on the right side of the aisle and the person on the left side of the aisle might both claim to follow Jesus, claim to follow this God, and like this side is wanting to scorch this side, and this side's wanting. So we're not just talking about the world, we're talking about within the family.
Yes.
And calling down lightning and thunder and on their head because they don't agree with us.
Absolutely.
That we don't agree on our interpretation, which don't forget, our interpretations are flawed.
They are. And I chuckle a little bit, and it's not a laughing matter. But honestly, the best comparison to the Jews and the Samaritans right now are what we're seeing over in Israel with the Israelis and the Palestinians, and that hatred. And even now, I'm sure you've felt this, like, I can't say anything without someone thinking that I'm all one way or all the other. And it's like, we can't even talk about the Jews and Samaritans now. Like, it's still such a problem.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what I love is I love that Jesus jokes with John about this. He's like, he jokes with him. And he's like, was that too soon? Like, are we good? You know, he does it with the Samaritan man too.
Yes.
He does it with the Samaritan man. Like, oh man, just that Jesus has this lightheartedness. I mean, this is serious stuff, but also there's a lightheartedness to that I'm bringing light to this, and it can change things.
Absolutely.
It can change you. Like, things can be different.
They can. And Jesus really did give them that nickname, the Sons of Thunder.
Yes.
Like, he totally did. And so, I mean, that's not outside of the realm of plausibility.
Sometimes I lose hope that things can change. And I think this episode, maybe there's a flicker of like things could be different.
Yeah.
That he can change things. So really quickly, what's the action step that you see for yourself coming out of this episode?
For me, I think it is to remain focused on the Father's business and not get distracted by any of the voices left, right, top, center, bottom, diagonal.
For me, it's that line that just hit me earlier, and that is wanting good for those that I may not agree with.
Yeah.
And that I may consider to be the other.
Absolutely.
I want what's good for them. I want blessing for them. I want beauty for them. I want light for them. And we don't have to agree on everything.
No.
And even those who have hurt me or stepped on my toes or treated me wrongly, like, I want to have a heart that wants what's good for them. So awesome. Well, I hope that this conversation really ignites a good conversation for you and those around you. And I hope that you continue to hear good news through this really cool TV show, that God uses tools like TV shows to stir our hearts and to invite us into a closer relationship with him. So thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.